good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. Let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. All right. My name is Ralph DeLeon. I'm the Executive Vice President here at the Fortune Society, where our slogan and our core belief is building people, not prisons. So welcome, everyone, this morning. I just want to say really quickly that I myself am a formerly incarcerated person. And that just is at the core of what we believe in, right? When we say building people and not prisons. And so our staff, all the way on up through our executive team, are made up a lot by people with lived experience. And that's a big part of why I have the honor and pleasure of introducing our speaker today. So Assemblymember Gibbs is a young man who grew up in East Harlem. And he himself is a formerly incarcerated person, and he's the first formerly incarcerated person to be elected to the state assembly. There we go, sorry. Just figuring out the technical stuff over here. So with no further ado, everyone, please give a round, a warm welcome and a round of applause to our guest, Mr. Eddie Gibbs. Thanks, Rob.
Good morning, Fortune Society. Good morning. Nah, you did it better for Rob, so I'm gonna try for me one more time. Good morning, Fortune Society. Good morning. Yeah, that sounds much better. It's an honor to be here this morning. I want to shout out my good buddy, David Rothenberg. Where's David at? David and I, we're becoming good close friends. I would be remiss if I didn't stay here today to tell you thank you for all that you have done, all that you have created, this movement, this organization within itself. It is important. It is important, and you are the man, David. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I also want to say thanks to a good friend, Robert. Rob and I, we look like twins right now, and I'm certainly anxious to work with him in regards to, expediting and moving forward with getting informally incarcerated individuals their rights back, civically and politically. We want to focus on housing. We want to focus on jobs. But more importantly, we have to focus on public safety. Public safety is an issue here in our city today. And speaking with the mayor, can I go up cuff for a minute? Speaking with the mayor and governor, we were talking about ways to curb the gun violence here in our city. And I told the governor, I said, Governor, respectfully, the answer is in these rooms. The answer is in prisons. The young men and women who are about to come home, we have to touch them. We have to talk to them. We have to create a path and a way to guarantee that they will be successful when they are released from prison. Then I talked to the mayor. I said, Mayor Adams, we have to do more. Public safety is an issue in our communities, and our young brothers and sisters coming home from prison are the answer. So we talked for about a couple of weeks, and one of the initiatives that I put together through the office is jobs for guns. So we know that there's gun violence going on throughout our city, throughout our country. And so one of the ways to address it was, opposed to giving a young man or a young woman a $150 gift card or a $200 gift card, let's give them a job. Right. Let's give them a career. Most of the time, that $150 won't last an hour, let alone a day. So we came up with this initiative that, we figured if we can stockpile jobs and offer these young men and women an opportunity to work, to get off the street and engage in positive activities while taking care of your families, paying your bills, and more importantly, staying out of prison, I think it'd be a plus for the city. And it seems like that they all resonating with this initiative. And talking with David and continue to talk with David, we want to house that initiative here at Fortune Society. Yeah. We're working out all the kinks now. There are other organizations who are interested in this movement, but it's not genuine. I think it's key to be here at Fortune because, David, you guys do great work. You touch that population no one else touches. I spoke to a director of an organization, I won't mention last night, and she was adamant about the funding we can get for this movement. And I said, if you're concentrating on the funding, as opposed to concentrating on getting the guns off the street, you're in the wrong movement. Now, I know we can't work for free and organizations must pay bills, but we are hurting in the city and we need help. If you don't know the story, my name is Eddie Gibbs, born and raised in East Harlem, single parent, 3 brothers. We ran the street early, sold drugs, did things that was ungodly, and ultimately I had to defend myself and I took someone's life. Served 3.5, well, I was sentenced to 3 to 9, served 4.5 years in prison for manslaughter B. I believe it was a charge I could have beaten had I had adequate legal representation. We couldn't afford an attorney, so we went with a legal aid. And in the late 80s, the Legal Aid Society was infamous for plea bargaining. I don't believe they felt comfortable going to trial a lot, so a lot of Black and brown children plea bargained their way out of prison, and I was one of them. So when I came home, I tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I knew one thing for sure, I didn't want to go back to prison. It was something about other people telling me when to use the bathroom, when to eat, when to wake up, when to take a shower, when to go talk to my friends, when to eat. It was just something about that that just didn't resonate with my spirit. And I knew that I shouldn't have been there. I knew I didn't want to go back. So I came home. It was a struggle in the beginning. And we often like to tell the story about peanut butter jelly and ramen noodle soup. If anybody can resonate with that story, peanut butter jelly and ramen noodle soup, raise your hand. I kid you not, that meal saved me. I ate peanut butter and jelly and ramen noodle soup for 10 years when I came home from prison. I was very adamant about not going back to the streets. I didn't have monies. And to eat these lavish lunches like steak, chicken, and filet mignon, you gotta have money. You gotta have a good job. To hang out with your girlfriend and take her to movies and dinners and dates, you gotta have money. You gotta have a job. I didn't have either. So I was fortunate. I was walking by a church one day on 116th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. And I seen a pastor, the late Reverend Dr. Timothy Horn. He was sweeping the curb in front of his church. And I said, sir, you're the pastor of the church? And he said, yes, I'm the pastor of this church. I said, well, why are you out here sweeping? Shouldn't people work for you, or shouldn't your members be out here sweeping with you? He said, no, this is something I do after church on Monday. I come and help out in the community. I said, well, sir, I just came home from prison. I have a lot of idle time on my hand, and I don't want to be on the streets. Can I sweep the curbs for you? He said, yeah, sure. But he said, I can't pay you. The church don't have a lot of money. It's a small church, probably 40, 50 in the congregation. A lot of people didn't tithe at the time. So he couldn't afford to pay me, but he gave me a space. He gave me sanctuary. He gave me an opportunity to get off the streets and do something constructive. Whether it was a broom or a mop, it was something constructive. So he let me into the church. The first day I swept and I mopped, and then I swept and I mopped it again because I was so appreciative of just being somewhere and somebody let me be a part of something. So a week went by and I kept sweeping and I kept mopping. And he told me one day, he said, Mr. Gibbs, it's not enough to sweep my mop. He like, you used all my supplies in 1 week. The church has been as clean as it's ever been. It can't get any cleaner. So I said, well, let me get a nail and a hammer. I think I can start fixing things around here, you know? Just didn't want to go back to the streets. And he said, well, look, that sounds expensive. And you're doing a lot of work, but I can't pay you. I said, well, look, I eat peanut butter and jelly and ramen noodle soup. You want to help out? Bring me that every day. And it seemed like it was a great negotiation because the next day he gave me 2 cases of ramen noodle soup, 2 jars of peanut butter, 2 jars of jelly, and a loaf of wheat bread. Now y'all know what I did with that, right? Went outside next door to the delicatessen, got me a bag of Cheez-Its. Y'all know where I'm going with this. And a beef stick. And I made myself a meal. And then I realized that, hey, if I'm eating peanut butter and jelly for lunch, ramen noodles, Cheez-Its, and beef sticks for dinner, that's a $5 meal. Oh, I can survive. I can survive because it was a choice. I made a choice. This is gonna feed me, this is gonna fill me up, and this is gonna keep me off the street. So for 10 years, I ate peanut butter and jelly, ramen noodle soup. Now, 4 years later, after sweeping and mopping, Rob, the pastor say, hey, I think you're a Christian. I said, you think so? Come to every service, I open the doors for the people, I clean up when they leave. You think I've heard the word or two for a couple of times. And he said, hey, I want you to be a deacon in training. Yeah, that's what I said. I said, Pastor, I got some issues. I cuss a lot, you know. I got a couple of girlfriends. I'm not settled. I don't think I'll be great for a deacon. And he said, Mr. Gibbs, God makes the call. He qualifies the call. You're here for a reason. He said, besides the profanity, besides a couple of girlfriends you have, work it out. Talk to yourself, talk to God, and come see me tomorrow with you and let me know what you want to do. So I'm like, I'm comfortable with the peanut butter and jelly. I'm comfortable with the mop and the broom. I don't want more on my plate. I don't want to go training for be a deacon. And he says, hey, look, you got something in you that you don't see, but other people do. He said, just go to the class one time. And he brought in his catechist. This guy is like a renowned preacher, Reverend Isaac B. Graham. Big preacher. And he trained about 7 deacons. And they started asking questions, and I was getting frustrated. And I was like, it seems like it's a prison setting. I'm in a room, this guy's screaming at us, we gotta remember these things, we gotta remember these things. And the pastor see me get frustrated, and he said, hey, look, trust the process. Get out of yourself and trust the process. And I listened to those words, and I did just that. I started breathing. And it's important because sometimes when we get so caught up, we forget to breathe. And then when we forget to breathe, we get so frustrated that we act. So I started breathing, and I started listening to the lessons and to the Bible scriptures. And I said, maybe I can do this too. And I realized that it was an opportunity to take 2 more hours out of my day. So the object was to stay away from the streets, stay away from the friends, stay away from the women who encourage you to go out there and hustle. My object was to stay off the streets. So I got into the diaconate class, and 6 months later, I became an ordained deacon. Yeah, I was an ordained deacon, but I still cursed. But I asked God for forgiveness. That's the key. So after that happened, I became an ordained deacon. I ran into an attorney named Murray Richmond. He's a criminal attorney. His daughter's a criminal attorney, Stacy Richmond. And he asked me to come work with him. He said, I need a driver, and I want you to come into the office and work with me. And I began driving for Murray. Murray represents all the rappers, all the celebrities, politicians, and mobsters. And his daughter, Stacy, she do the same, but she does some other advocacy stuff. And she told me one day, she said, Mr. Gibbs, you've been home for a while. You're off of parole. She said, you can get your rights back. I said, how the hell can I do that? She said, let me fill out a certificate of good conduct for you, or a certificate of relief. Now, I don't know what the certificate is, what it did, what it do. I didn't know anything about the certificate. I just said, go ahead, do it. If you want to fill it out for me, I'm not doing it. Do it. And she filled out the certificate. She asked me to sign it, and she sent it in. 3 months later, she told me, she said, your certificate came back. You have a certificate of good conduct. I don't care. I got a job with an attorney. I'm driving his brand new cars. I'm stunting for the girls. I'm getting a check. I don't care about the certificate. And she sat me down. She said, well, this certificate lifts all bars of licensing and employment. Essentially, you get your rights back. And she said, and you can vote. Now, I've heard stories over the years that if you're in prison, Rob, come home from prison, you can't vote. You can't participate politically. Don't even think about filling out the voter's registration card because you're not going to get it back. Those are all rumors. When I got my certificate, Murray Richmond at the time was representing the former assembly member whose seat I occupy now. His name is Adam Clayton Powell. At the time, Adam Clayton Powell got arrested for DWI, and Murray was the attorney. And Murray said, hey, you got your rights back. You're now registered to vote. Adam's getting arrested for DWI. Why don't you try to run for office? I said, are you kidding me? Are you crazy? He said, no, take $500, put these posters up everywhere in East Harlem, and run for office. Now, those was the instructions. His daughter, Stacy, and her friends took care of the petitioning and the ballot process. I said, all right, great. I just went around and put up posters everywhere. And I became a candidate for the New York State Assembly 7 years after I came home from prison. No, y'all ain't hear the end of the story. Don't clap, don't clap. I lost Adam Powell with my ass. That first race, he tore me up. But I didn't know I was a candidate, right? I just put up posters and I went back to work. Murray Richmond back then had a brand new Acura and a brand new Mercedes-Benz. And I was like, I'm taking the cars out. I didn't care about running for office at the time. And I remember the day of the election, Murray had called me and he said, hey, where are you? And I was like, I'm in Staten Island. I used to take his car everywhere. I'm like, in Staten Island. He said, hey, you have a campaign to run. What are you doing in Staten Island? Today is your election. I didn't know I had an election, and a big one at that. So I got back to Manhattan and I went to a polling site. And I went into the polling site and I seen my name on the ballot. And it actually freaked me out. It did. I was like, I get to vote for myself with a felony conviction. Manslaughter charge at that. So I was like, damn, what am I doing? I mean, didn't know what I was doing, but I voted for myself either way. And later on that night, I heard that Adam Clayton Powell won by 75 votes that year. Yeah, that was something. And I didn't realize it till about 2 years later that I almost beat Adam Clayton Powell with a felony conviction. This man, dad has a statue on 7th Avenue, y'all. This man's an Adam Clayton Powell, right? So it was like, it was something to think about. So I did the next best thing. I ran for a lower seat, which is district leader. District leader is a volunteer party position, and it has its perks. We pick Supreme Court judges, we appoint criminal court judges, we appoint poll workers, we hire board election staff. So it was a good perk to have, and it gives you the authority to charter Democratic clubs. My comms director, Jack LaBelle, looking at me right now. Don't talk about that here. But it gives you the authority to charter Democratic clubs. So I like that position. I occupied that position for about 10 years. And then we got wind that the current and former the former Assembly member, Robert Rodriguez, accepted a nomination from the governor to be Secretary of State. So that meant that the Assembly member was going to leave his seat and go work with the governor in Albany as the next Secretary of State. So that meant it was an open seat. Prior to Robert taking the position, I had a Democratic club in East Harlem. We were very active. I had county committee members. I ran everybody all the time. So the process is when the seat becomes open, you have to go through county committee to appoint who you want that nominee to be. County committee appointed me 98% of the votes. Yeah. And then I had a special election and I ran against a Republican and I won 99% of the votes. Yeah. So that was the first election. I essentially made history. I became the first formerly incarcerated individual to occupy New York State Legislature, the New York State Assembly. Yeah. So, but the real test was, so I won in January, but I had to run for re-election in June, like 5 months. So I had 5 months to go to Albany and prove to the people in the East Harlem district that I am able not only to serve in the seat, but to deliver. And so I got there, Speaker Hastings, he's the Speaker of the Assembly, and he asked me, he said, Mr. Gibbs, congratulations. He said, you're one of 150 board members of the richest organization in the world, one of the 10 richest organizations in the world. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I was the black sheep of the Assembly, and there's 149 professional people, and then there's me, right? And he said, look, you have a unique perspective. We all do. We know some things they don't know. I know some things they don't know. They know some things I don't know. So it was a unique perspective. So he said, don't be intimidated by being here. Be honored. And he said, run with the moment. Own the moment. Because right now, you are valuable to this body. And I got elected during a time where criminal justice reform was a big issue. Bail reform was a big issue. Public safety is a big issue. So I was like, I'm in Albany. I was like, I'm the man, y'all, you know. All you other 149 people, y'all gotta listen to me, right? But in reality, I knew that these other professionals can help this movement. And who am I to shun the process? Who am I to shun them? I needed them to work with me to order work with you guys. See, it's a lot of pressure being the first. Right? It's a lot of pressure making this history. Being the first formerly incarcerated individual, a guy with a manslaughter charge, to serve in the New York State Assembly, it's a lot of pressure. You know why? Because there are people who want you to fail. So a lot of people who want me to fail. Maybe in the Republican Party, maybe in our own party. I don't think that they want us to be in these seats. So it was a lot of pressure. And then you have to walk on eggshells because you know they're watching me. And we're transparent. I still eat peanut butter and jelly and ramen noodles. If you go to my office in Albany, it's probably stale by now because I haven't been there in 3 months. But if you go to my office in Albany, you open the bottom drawer, you're gonna see strawberry jam and peanut butter and jelly. Skippy. So, you know, they can watch me, they can listen, they can follow me. I'm not gonna do anything inappropriate because if I do, if I fail, we all fail. You know why? Because they're gonna say, I told you I wasn't ready for this. I told you they shouldn't be here. Look, I broke laws. Now I'm in Albany making them. Powerful, but yet stressful because you can't fail. It's a movement, and I'm honored to be here. But my reason for being here today is to inspire you all, men and women, to be the second Eddie Gibbs, the third Eddie Gibbs, the fourth Eddie Gibbs. We can do this, y'all. I can't do it alone. And that's why I'm glad I have David to call when you have those moments. Because it's lonely. I'm up there with 149 professional politicians. I'm not a politician. I'm a politician. I care about people more than I care about policy. But just to show the naysayers and those who disbelieve that we can do this, that we can do it, my first 3 months, I've primed about 13 bills. I co-sponsored 130, and I even got about 4 of my bills passed this year. So we checked the records of the former assembly members and some other assembly members, and I found that none of them did as much as work as I did in 4 months than they did in 2 years. So I'm honored to have done that. A reporter asked me one day, she said, Mr. Gibbs, you see the work that you did, and out of the 100 or so bills you co-sponsored, 95% of them are ex-offender friendly. That's what the question is. And it's important because in the legislature, we have a young man named David Weprin, Assemblymember David Weprin. He's the chairman of corrections for this year. I'm coming for that seat next year. But he's the chairman of corrections, and rightfully so, David Weprin is doing great things for us. He's creating great legislation for us. And I went up there and I joined him, and I got on most of his bills because it made sense. One of the bills he creating right now, and I'm co-prime sponsor of it, is when we come home from prisons, most of us have a hard time getting our identification cards. We don't have our birth certificates. We don't know what our social securities are. We don't know point systems. We don't have rent bills. All these requirements that DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle, asks for. So it's a hindrance when we come home and we don't have ID. We don't have ID, we can't get housing. We don't have ID, we can't get jobs. You know, if we get pulled over, we don't have ID, chances are we will get violated. So David Weprin's bill simply says, before a man or woman is released from prison, New York State should provide them with an identification card. Who knows us better than the prisons who held us, right? And it makes sense. It's a common sense bill. Let's get some identification cards so it can expedite the process of us coming home, getting jobs and housing. So those bills, type of bills, I'm co-sponsoring, I'm signing on. We're creating some new legislation. When I got into the, so it's funny, when I first got elected, a lot of people didn't understand the story. They thought, you know, it was just a fluke. And I had a conversation with the governor, and she had asked me, what made me do this? And I said, well, you know, being in college, you know, in prison was a turning point in my life. I went to Cayuga Correctional Community College, and I received my associate's degree in business administration. And I didn't have enough time to go further, but I did get my degree, and I came home. So I was telling the governor, you know, when I got my associate's degree, I wanted to take it further, but I didn't have enough time, and I don't have resources to go back now. And she said, well, that's a great thing, because I'm looking at a program that we stopped over the years, and I want to revisit that. And it was the TAP program, Tuition Assistance Program. And she's like, you know, we put 12 million back into the programs, and we're going to open up the colleges. Yeah, we were family, so I can be honest with you girls and guys. I had nothing to do with that, but I took all the credit. I was like, first form incarcerated individual in the assembly, and I got $12 billion to open up the prisons again. Because that's what they all do, right? So, but I was excited for the initiative because we give men and women an opportunity to further their educations while incarcerated. And so those are one of the big initiatives that I'm working on. Yeah, I'm formally incarcerated individual friendly, as they call me in the press, because it starts with us. Public safety starts with us. What organization that you know, or what professional politician that you know could go into any street, any district and say, hey guys, let's calm that down. Let's find another solution. Put the guns away. What do you know can do that? We can. Public safety starts with us. And so I want the mayor and I want the governor to recognize the validity that we have in terms of reaching out to the people that we need to reach out to curb gun violence. And I think it's gonna work out. But I need you guys' support. I need you guys going to your communities, get motivated, get inspired, eat peanut butter and jelly, ramen noodle soup, but serve your community. That's where it started at. For me, when I first came home, the church helped out, but I started doing events in the community for seniors and youth. I gave a lot of barbecues. I figured free food and wine will bring everybody out. And it worked. It worked. So for 30 years, you do this repeatedly. The people will resonate with the message. People thought I walked into the seat. No, I worked for the seat. It took me 30-something years to show the constituents and the residents in East Harlem that not only am I able to serve them, but I'm trustworthy. And it starts with the seniors. And I worked hard for the seniors, trickled my way down to the youth. The politicians always watched because every event I had, the numbers grew. So my first barbecue may have had 100 people. My last barbecue, we served over 1,300 people. So now people are wondering, like, what's this movement? It's because I put that time in. I talked to the people. So the real test was the re-election. I mentioned to you guys earlier that I only served 5 months when I first got elected before I had to run for re-election. And I want to shout out the Fortune Society, a couple of young men and women who came out and volunteered today on June 28th. It was really successful with you guys. But the real test was the re-election on June 28th because I ran against 3 viable candidates. In the city, Democrats are the majority. So I didn't worry about running against a Republican, but I worried about running against my colleagues and my peers. And there were 3 of them who were very influential and they raised a lot of money. I think combined, it was about 300, a little bit over $250,000 they spent trying to unseat me. Now this became the real test, right? Because they sent out mail-ins, they reminded people that I served time in jail for murder. I'm an ex-offender. So this was the real test, right? Whether I should be here or not. I'm running against 3 powerful Democrats. And so I worried. I even thought about copping out again. I was like, maybe I should just drop out now, go write a book and say, hey, I did it. Or I could stay in and fight them and show them that I'm supposed to be here. And we did that. And with the help of some of the members here in Fortune Society and other folks and my staffer, including my comp guy, Jack LaBelle, who always tell me don't mention him, we won double digits. And it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like people didn't know who they was voting for. The story was out. Jack got me on every news channel, every newspaper. It was safe to say that people in our district knew my story. And they constantly got up on June 28th and came out and voted for me. So to end this conversation with you guys, I want to say that if a wretch, a broken down sinner, ex-offender, to come home and occupy a seat in one of the 10th richest corporations in the country, you guys could do just more. You can do more. You don't have to get involved with politics. It may not be your thing, but do something in the community that's gonna make you stand out. Don't be afraid. Jump out there. If it seems like it's impossible, make it possible. Make it possible. Guys, I went against a party, and I don't bash my Democratic Party, but I went against a party who didn't want this to happen. These guys get talking points off of us. These guys get votes off of us. Damn it, these guys make money off of us. They didn't want this to happen. Because if you reduce recidivism, if you reduce crime, if you encourage and inspire everybody that's coming home to change their lives around and become productive members of society, what else do you have? We are a threat to them in this movement. So my job is to visit every state prison in New York State to inspire each and every one of us that we can change our lives around. And not only can we will. Yeah. I just want to say it close about. So one of the unique things I like about the perk I like about being a New York State Assembly member is that this pin right here on my jacket, right? Y'all see this pin, this lapel? This pin gets me into every state prison in the city and state of New York. I can walk into any prison unannounced anytime I want to. Right? I'll share a story with you. So when the speaker first told me, he said, hey, look, you have the authority to walk to any state institution you want, to go to any prison anytime you want, whenever you want. I said, I'm gonna try that one day. I was a little bit afraid, Rob, right? So in Albany, if you're coming from Albany, you're coming back to the city, the first jail you run into is Coxsackie. Coxsackie, guys, right? Yeah. Now, I drove by there like 3 or 4 times, right? And I was like, what the hell? So I pull over, get out the car. There's a guard in the tower. He screams down, how can I help you? I said, I want to come in. He said, there's no visits today, it's Tuesdays. I said, well, I'm a New York State Assembly member and I want to come in. I didn't know how to ask. I was like, I want to come in. He was like, stay right there. About 20 minutes later, some deputy superintendent came down with 3 other officers. I said, oh shit, I'm going to the box now. A little bit nervous, Rob, right? So I'm saying, okay, what do I do here? You know, it's the first time, didn't know, never interacted with the correctional officer since I've been released. So they come in, hey, how you doing, Mr. Gibbs? We just spoke to the commissioner, yes. You want to take a tour? I was like, shit, yeah, let's go. So they asked me, hey, you want to go to the mess hall? You want to go over here? I realized they was trying to give me the beautiful tour, the makeup tour. The guy said, no, I've been in these prisons before. I want to go to SHU. He said, huh? I said, I want to go to SHU. Coxsackie. Had about 16 incarcerated individuals in there. They got this thing now, the Hawk Law, so the officers are pissed off about that. So I go to SHU and I'm talking to the incarcerated individuals there, and I'm inspiring them. I'm like, guys, I'm in a fucking cell with you. Who would ever thunk? At that time here before. Come home, get your lives together. So that worked out real well. They gave me the tour and I got open. I was like, if I could do this, I could do all the other jails. So to make a long story short, I've been to about 13 prisons already. It's good to laugh. But you must believe that you can do anything you want. Society gives you the tools to better yourself. You'll use those tools to your advantages. Take advantage of it. You guys got job development here. You got prep. You got training. Go out there and be somebody important. Dare to be somebody important in your community. It's easy. And I'm here for you guys. let's start the Q&A, man. Thank you.
Hello. All right, thanks so much, Eddie. That was really inspiring. Thanks so much, bro. Something that came up for me actually while you were talking, and that is that folks try to define you and said you are an ex-con, you are this, you are that. And what came up for me is that, you know, you were incarcerated. You know, they try to use things to describe who you were, but who you are is the assembly member. And so if anyone has any questions, this is the mic. You guys should come up, I think right about here. And, you know, the assembly member will entertain some of our questions. So if you guys wanted to line up here, that'll be great.
Hi,
Hey, again.
so good to see you and all of you. And I just want to say your ramen noodle story just reminded me of something very, very important. I would have sent you a 35-pound package, but we're incarcerated. But folks, now the prisons are doing away with the packages. I represent the families, my organization, Prison Families Alliance, and I work with the families of the incarcerated. And we can no longer send packages to our loved ones. And it might seem very minor to all of them, but it's not. It's a very, very important issue, and I wanted to make you all aware of it.
Yeah, so we're aware of that. And actually, I was in Fishkill when they announced that, and you know, we're not comfortable with that. You know, packages coming from the outside. It serves as a reminder that your family care about you, that your family loves you. And it's an intimate moment when you receive a package from someone on the outside. So we have to figure that out with docs as well as the mail situation. And, you know, I'm going to use this microphone, this voice, this button, this title, whatever it takes to, you know, advocate for that. So, yeah.
Young gentleman, we have two people tonight.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Vasquez. I had a couple of questions. So one thing that really concerns me that I feel like we need all across the board is more financial literacy here. Because like you said, what's the point of giving out a gift card if that's only gonna last so long? Because it's gonna last a day. Now, it probably shouldn't last a day. Let's just say if you got like a $200 gift card. My problem is financial literacy. This system is kind of built to not teach minorities how to spend their money. They just give us money and let us do what they want. That's kind of how the system is built. I actually went to school for political science. I have an associate's. I was 3 semesters from getting a pre-law certificate and a bachelor's degree. So it's like, I'm actually interested in talking to you about possibly taking the same road because that's where I was on back then. But financial literacy is very important because they keep us kind of down and content by having us worry about, you know, like the nice shoes, what's out in social media and all that. And we're not worried about setting a proper foundation for our future generations or just ourselves. So if you guys could like look into having classes that are built into the social services or something where we could actually learn how to make our money work for us instead of just living check by check, that'll be great.
2 things, man. Well, first of all, you're not going to possibly think about doing it. You are going to do it. You're not thinking about possibly. You are going to go back to the community and you are going to do something, whether it's politically or not. Listen, put it out there. You're going to do it. Nothing possibly about it. You're going to make it happen. Now, second thing about the finance, I think you just gave Fortune Society another curriculum to work on. It's a good idea, though. It's a wonderful idea. So I'm quite sure Rob is listening and his will is spinning right now. How can we start this financial literacy program here at Fortune? But look, do it. And see me before I leave, okay?
Question here, then we have a question over there. Your voice can carry. You can just stand up.
How you doing, Mr. Gibbs?
Thanks, sir.
Pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for coming. Your story is very powerful. Hopefully you're gonna write a book or something like that. It's gonna go far. I want to ask a question about the IDs and stuff. It's like, oh, you said about the bill that might come through. Like, could you talk about more? It's very hard to get IDs. So like, what is the process to it? Or
Well, so that bill is going to pass. It's actually sitting there, but you know, It's two bills that I'm actually pushing. The one is Clean Slate Act, and the second one is that ID bill. And that bill is important and it's necessary for the growth of this population. I'm quite sure our members, the other 149 professional politicians, understand this. And so maybe January, January, February? I think it'll probably pass in January, February, and I'm gonna walk it to the governor's office for her signature. Trust me. I'm following him. I don't know who's next.
Remember, can you just repeat the question? We have people on Zoom, so whenever someone raises the question, if you can just repeat it so those on Zoom can understand what the question is talking about. You had a question, sir? Did someone on this side have a question? Anyone on that side? Okay, I see 1, 2. Gotcha. I see you.
Oh, yeah, simply, my name is Robert. The question is, for people that are still inside, say you speak with the governor often, could you speak with her about reversing the executive order that stops people from getting released to work release? Because it's not a legislative thing that needs to be done, it's just reissue an executive order that people transfer into work release.
Yeah, so the question is pretty much is, he want me to go into the governor's office, kick open the door and say, Governor, restore the work. And this is what we need. And when I tour prisons, when I visit the prisons, you guys will be amazed that the young men and the young women are savvy about bills and laws. They embarrass me sometimes. They give me, hey, do you know about A4572? I'm like, not on hand. He's like, well, you on the bill. But that's a good suggestion, right? And I'm going to hope that Jack heard that question, because then we'll push that initiative. If you guys have something, an idea that helps motivate and elevate us, bring it to me, give it to me. I take it to Albany and I sit there and I'll make it to something. That right there, and thank you for the information, because I did not know that.
Well, that's one of the things that I was just thinking with Sammy about it. That's one of the issues that we had when we were in, that a lot of people were eligible for work release, but when Pataki took it out through an executive order, it stopped us from being transferred into work release, therefore preventing some of the re-entry programs that you spoke about. So if people get that opportunity to go to work release, they can get out and get their life started a little earlier than just doing 25 years being dropped off into Times Square saying, figure it out. People would have time to build up to that.
Yeah, so we need Governor Hochul to restore that executive order. That's what we need. Yeah.
So we're going to take 3 more questions.
Thank you for the information.
We're going to take 3 more questions because we have lunch. We're going to take 3 more questions.
Hey, Andre, we have somebody over Zoom that wants to ask a question.
Oh, people in Zoom ask questions
We'll
too.
try to get at least 1 person from Zoom, right? And I know maybe 2 or 3 before we wrap, because we want to make sure everyone eats too. I know people are a little hungry. Hold on 1 minute, sir. We have an order. All right, some people over there raising hands.
I got you, but
We got you.
you
We'll get
got
to you.
the one.
So the person with the yellow hat, then this person right here.
I just want to know how you say, I heard you say earlier, you say you're building more jobs for basically people who are incarcerated and all that, right? But what about building more fortress societies and stuff like that?
You can't build more fortress society. There's only one fortress society. Oh, we got fortress societies, got locations in other boroughs too, bro. You got a fortress society in Manhattan, you got one here. I mean, one in Bronx. I get what you're saying though, right? They are other organizations, but out of respect of, huh? Well, you know what? It's an option. It's an option, brother.
It's not an option for a lot of us.
Really?
It's not.
Well, look, I think they recommend you to the right location.
Maybe a certain alternatives coming here and discuss. See, so my predicament, I'm poor man, I got it. Right? I have no problem coming to the match. But my point is, a lot of people in communities and other neighborhoods, they need this stuff. And they don't know. They need guidance. They need somebody, like somebody that just came in and did for us. You know, they need.
Yeah, sir, let me share with you. So
The backup is, you know what I'm saying?
I think that's a powerful question. Yeah, that's a powerful question. I would definitely follow up with you later on, but I want to say something. I visited all these organizations. Fortune Society, I like those too, but Fortune Society is the creme de la creme. I don't owe David anything. David don't owe me anything. Rob and I are besties. I don't owe him anything. He don't owe me anything. I'm not saying it because of. I'm telling you because it's the truth. You got the creme de la creme right now. And the services that they offer here, take your time with it. It's impactful. It's impactful. Use it. You could go to other organizations. It's a hangout. It's a hangout. Right here, they do. Right. See me later on. We'll follow up with that, all right? You and I. And I'm going to give you my number because I ain't afraid of a debate.
We're going to take the next question here. We have one that's on the Zoom.
And then we have my big brother.
We have over here. But we'll do it because we have lunch. We asked Assemblymember, maybe they can speak with you while they're serving
At lunch, yeah,
outside or
definitely.
something like that. So if you have questions for them, you can speak with them.
Definitely.
How you doing, man? You inspired me, man. I came home in 2019, in 30 years, right? So that being said, I've been handicapped for a lot of things. I had to get adjusted to society. My biggest problem is this. Right? When I was incarcerated for 30 years, I did different programs. I got an electrician, graduated from that occasion. And because it's only valid for 10 years, I had to go to another vocation again, which it was custodial maintenance. Then I completed building maintenance. Now, my problem with that is I learned all the skills, but when you come home, it means nothing because everything is state certified, those skills that they teach you in school in that. So my question is, why would you have this program in all the jails here in New York, all the prisons in New York, to offer individuals in there? But when you get to release to society, they don't recognize them because it's not state certified. What they do is just give you a printout that you can make on any computer and hope that your employer take you for your word. Then, I think that, if you understand, you might be able to look into that.
Thank you for speaking in existence, but I'm saying you now. But I want to say, right, those that printed out certificate they gave you isn't certified.
No, it's not.
Though it's not certified, your experience is, and they can never take that from you. Right? Don't get caught up in the paperwork. Listen, we have a strike against us when we come home, and we can have that in the back of our head that we have to work just as harder. We don't want a paper to say, hey, give us a job, one from us. Your experience is going to get you there, trust me. And this is the last question on this side.
All right, we have a question on Zoom, so we want to get to that question.
Yeah.
I just want to shout you out, Mr. Assemblyman. I'm amazed by your story. I think you're an inspiration, and at this point, I look up to you. I'm formerly incarcerated myself, did 20 years, and I was just wondering, are you available for political party mentorship so others could join you in a fight to change the system?
I think it's a good question. Yes, I am. And this is one of the reasons why we started the Second Chance Democratic Club. Again, we have some information if you want to get in contact with me, but out of respect for Fortune Society and the status that they carry, I cannot get into it.
Well, just remember my name, Deshaun Kenner. I will be reaching out to you.
828-3953 is my number.
I can't. I'll have to get it or somebody there.
Send me the office and you got me.
All right, cool.
All right, thanks for the question.
This is not
212-828-3953. It's my office number. I have some business cards I give you guys as well. 212-828-3953. I have business cards, guys, so I'm gonna give you guys before we leave. David, I know this guy been waiting for a long time for the questions.
I just want to say something. Good morning. Morning, my name is Robert Smith, right? And when you mention things about the prison that you ventured into, really, take a room that you should go into all phase-free rooms that is supposed to prepare you for when you come home. And it's ironic though, because what I did 16 to life, and I learned that all the programs that I was taught in prison actually didn't prepare me for society. But now when I walk in this building, I'm loaded. You know what I'm saying? So I want to give a shout out to the educators here, the staff here, because what's really important when you see the fortune of society in the prisons, you see the papers, so you really don't know about these programs because the Department of Corrections, they're not pushing it on you. Yeah. And if they are pushing it on you, the information there is outdated. Like I came home last year, I'm looking at Fortune Society paperwork dated from 1998. And if you go up into the western regions of like Collins and Livingston, whatever the case may be, they got a small locker for New York City inmates that's preparing to come home. So your message is not getting clearly out as it should.
You know what? I think docs need to do more in terms of doing just that. But by raise of hands, how many of us just went to the programs because we knew we was going to the parole board and we wanted to come home, right? You guys, you're here now. Let's do it. Let's do it.
We've seen history today. Assemblyman Gibbs, formerly incarcerated, first in the, not in New York State, in the country to get elected. Go to prison after they serve. He got it out of the way before. And I want to remind you what you said. A great woman named Flo Kennedy said, if you have a problem, you have any concerns, get a broom. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Assemblymember.